Sorry. I get confused for DeFi Dad quite a lot, so no worries there. Hello, everyone. I am DeFi Dude. I do community management over at Aave. Today, I'm going to be doing a quick presentation just about all the risks in DeFi. There's a lot going on in DeFi right now, a lot of craze, and with it, obviously a lot of risks. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen quickly. Okay, can you guys see my screen okay and hear me? Cool. Okay, so we have the dark side of DeFi. We're going to be covering a lot of the risks, as I mentioned today. There's a lot going on in DeFi right now, and there's a lot of really awesome stuff as well. Obviously, my name is DeFi Dude, so I'm a huge DeFi advocate. From the start, I got into DeFi. I would say really big, probably around the summer of last year. I think right around when DeFi Dad got into DeFi. It's kind of been interesting to watch it evolve. It's evolved kind of from, this new form of finance that is kind of like, it's very innovative, and we're all, kind of here to watch it develop. But then in the past few months, or at least a couple months, it feels like it's almost taken a turn from what we were kind of originally seeing, and now it's more, like, let's get a bunch of cash. How can we, yield farm this, that, and some of these have value, but lately I feel like it's some of that value that it had early on has been leaking away, I think, but there's still a lot more coming, and it's only been getting bigger and bigger. So definitely happy to see it and watch it live. So what does risk in DeFi mean? This little chart here in the middle here, you've got crypto and Ethereum, right? So there is inherent risk with just using crypto and Ethereum. I mean, let's say we've got like seed phrases, private keys. I don't even have my own parents manage their seed phrase because they, it's very hard to relay the message of like, okay, these 12 words or these 24 words, this is your master password. There's no username. You can't change your password. You can't just change your seed phrase. You quite literally, would have to get a whole new account or wallet in that case, back it up, move everything over. So, so there's risk alone in securing your own wallet, backing it up, making sure no one can find it. You've got volatility as well. Obviously crypto is very volatile, so that's a risk in itself. And things like that, centralized exchanges being hacked, those types of things. But then you have the smart contract risks or DeFi risks in general. And now I kind of separate these between DeFi and DeGen-Fi, as I like to call it, which is kind of what I would refer to as like the more recent DeFi, as DeGen-Fi. But going back, the smart contracts and regular DeFi, I guess I would kind of group those together for risks. So where the risk comes from that, a lot of it is to do with, there's two big ones, which I'm going to touch on later, but it would be, regular smart contract exploits, as we saw back in 2017, 2018. A good example is the parity multi-sig exploit. We had over $100 million in Ether just sitting in the multi-sig. And then some guy comes along and he's like, hey, your code is vulnerable here. You should do something about it. And then, 10 minutes later, oops, I killed it. And, then the contract is destroyed, and, $100 million or whatever is just locked in there forever and ever and ever. So that, is one example of an exploit. Except in that case, the hacker didn't get to steal the funds, just lock them. So you've got things like that, and then you've got like admin keys. Whereas, for example, if a contract has an admin key, it could be set up in many different ways. But the general idea of an admin key is basically, okay, so you have a wallet. We're going to give this wallet, admin, permissions to this contract, which a lot of times could mean, this owner could drain all the funds out of this contract. So as an example, let's assume Uniswap had an admin key. It does not. but let's just assume it had like a master admin key that, what would that mean? The admin key could potentially like drain all the liquidity on Uniswap if it was set up to do that. So like the admin key could be specifically laid out to, maybe only adjust the network fee, and maybe it has no permission to even touch liquidity. So, it's just something you'd have to properly research first. And again, I can get more into admin keys as we go further into this. But then we've got the DeGen-Fi risks. And, I guess the DeGen-Fi and DeFi risks, I would say they do kind of blend in with each other. There are a lot of shared risks between the two. But I would say that DeGen-Fi in general kind of has more of the like experimental risks as well, on top of like, admin keys and stuff like that. It's got risks that are more like, it's hard without a specific use case or like a specific example, but more specific to like that token, I guess, and their unique experiment, whatever they're running. Again, I don't know how to word it exactly, but I can touch on this in a little bit here. So let's see. Is DeFi inherently risky, more than other Ethereum applications? I've seen a lot of people on Twitter recently, they kind of disregarded DeFi or kind of discredited it altogether just because of like the recent sushi farming and that sort of stuff. And it was kind of like upsetting, I guess, to see. I know one person that I'm really thinking of, they're known in Ethereum, they've been around. So to see them kind of like discredit DeFi as a whole and kind of say, hey, it's not going to go anywhere. This is all just kind of fun and games for now, and it'll blow up and that won't matter. I'm not really a fan of that. I don't really get where they're coming from for there. I don't think it's, inherently more risky than other Ethereum applications or dApps. I think a lot of it has to do with, these test and prod, unaudited code contracts sort of things. Like obviously these are going to be more risky because they're unaudited or they're very new, or, they've never touched a test net. So of course those are going to be more risky than other stuff. But, the act of saying DeFi itself is more risky, it really isn't. It makes no sense just because there's a contract that has to do with decentralized finance. It doesn't really add that much risk. I think it's really just where people that are building in DeFi are kind of going right now with their risks. I feel like so a lot of these people building on DeFi are by choice, releasing it with little audits or things like that. And so obviously there's more risk, and I think people are attributing that to DeFi as a whole, which is not. I mean, there's much more to DeFi than just farming yams and shrimp and pasta. And another thing too is, so as we saw from Sebastian's DeFi Pulse metrics, there's over 7.75 billion locked in DeFi, which that is a lot, and it's grown like crazy, very awesome to see. And there's only been less than 100 million lost in DeFi. So I put a little asterisk there because this number, I could not track anything down. I looked at DeFi primes for 2020, how much was lost. I think it was like less than 30 million. So I just said, okay, screw it, I'll throw on some, an extra 70 million, whatever, call it a day. So I don't know exactly how much is lost in 2020, but like the amount that's been lost for how much is being, risked or put up, it's kind of incredible for how much everyone's yelling how risky this all is, just for, how much is lost compared to what we were losing in like 2017, 2018, just to centralized exchanges. We lost so much money. And I guess, people were yelling risks then, but now it's like people are still screaming risks about this DeFi stuff. And yet we're still not seeing a whole lot of losses in terms of like catastrophic failure type things, or, but that's not to say we won't. I mean, cross our fingers there. So how do we warn people about this risk properly? You've got kind of two sides of people, I think, that I've seen. You've got the people who are screaming at the top of their lungs, hey, this is risky, don't do this. And then you've also got the people who are like, all right, well, maybe there's high risk, high reward. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Those people who are screaming, well, hey, there's super high risk, you'll probably lose your money to this. They obviously think they're doing a great service, and sometimes they are, by letting people know about these risks. But at the same time, and this is actually like, I thought of this, my buddy Cooper Turley, who does a lot of great stuff in governance and DeFi. He mentioned this when I was watching him on some stream, and he basically said, well, there are people that are attracted to that, right? So a lot of times high risk is paired with high reward. So if you have these, top people in DeFi saying, hey, this is super risky, chances are you're going to lose all your money. Well, high risk is high reward. I kind of want that high reward. So maybe I should look into this, or maybe I should put my money into this, because if he's saying it's a high reward, high risk, it's probably high reward. So how do we, kind of meet in the middle there? I mean, we don't want to be warning people only to encourage them. But then at the same time, we don't want to just say, hey, let's not warn people at all. Screw it. It's not working. I think it's education, really. We need people to make their own decisions. And I think that's where a lot of people are going. As far as warning people, they understand that, saying, hey, this is super risky isn't just going to stop people from doing it, right? It might stop some, but really, like, what I think a lot of people want people to do is go out, do the research yourself, obviously, do the diligence, look into this stuff. And this is very hard with crypto. This is something that I'm very often pushing beyond just DeFi risk, is education. Education is so important in crypto, in DeFi, anything to do with Ethereum, blockchain, because it's so hard to navigate a lot of this stuff that anyone who isn't a tech native, grown up around a computer, it's like this stuff is navigating like a minefield, basically. You have people out there who can barely manage to log into their Facebook. How are they going to manage, MetaMask and Words and all these different protocols? And so it's very important that people stay educated and, have the right resources to learn about these in an easy way. That way they can make their own decision. Is this risk really worth it? And how do I, measure this risk? Which goes to the next point. How do we measure this risk? So with DeFi, risk is kind of evolving. There's always new risks kind of coming into play. And it's very hard to like give an exact outline of, how do we measure it? So I guess I'm going to share like a couple of things that I personally do to measure the risk in DeFi. And one is audits. Now, this is something that, is screamed everywhere, is audits, audit this, audit that. If you don't know what an audit is, basically you get people that know or are good at reviewing code, securing it, making sure it's safe, I guess. There are companies that specialize in this. Code producers or developers would send off their code. These people would review it basically and say, hey, we found an exploit here that needs to get fixed. Or they could say, hey, yeah, we looked over this. It looks great. Your audit is perfect. Here you go. So the more audits that are done, it's never a sure sign that, nothing bad can happen just because an audit is done. But it is more of like, it's just an extra sign, I guess, that it's going to be maybe most likely a little more safe. Again, maybe it still, an audit does not mean it will be safe, but it's just something to look out for. It's better if they do have an audit than don't. Then we have admin keys. And this is one of the things that Chris Black from the community, he kind of brought a lot of attention to this, where prior not a lot of people were focusing on this. And I actually like a lot of respect to him for doing so, because I think it's almost like after he made the video about admin keys and started yelling about it, everyone kind of paid more attention to crypto risks or risks in DeFi, I guess. I don't want to discredit, Taylor Monahan. She also has done, awesome work in yelling the risks about DeFi publicly. But basically what admin keys are, I kind of explained it earlier, I guess, but it's like the master key to a contract. So different contracts have different admin keys or no admin keys at all. But a lot of times, like, these admin keys can pretty much, play God with these contracts if they wanted to. And one example is like the recent sushi farming. So they have an admin key. And at first, someone posted on Twitter like, hey, this admin key could steal all the liquidity, what's going on? Like, shouldn't we be freaking out? And then, the people come on and they're like, well, no, it's in a 2-day time lock. So, if anything wanted to be done, they would have to sign it, and then they'd have to wait 2 days before anything can be processed. Well, I mean, it's good that, we'd have to wait 2 days. So there's a chance that, we could probably just pull our money out, which is fine. But at the same time, it's like DeFi isn't really DeFi when, something can, I guess, like, be destroyed in 2 days, or like, be completely ruined in 2 days, or controlled, I guess. So it is a start. And I know a lot of these projects, like, they do want to move away from admin keys in the future. So I'm hoping that it comes to that, but it's like going from admin keys to say, hey, we now have a 1 day or a 2 day time lock. That's an improvement, but it's not really, removing the risk entirely. So we'll see where that goes. Allocation is another one too. If you have like a governance token, obviously I always look into, how much is the VC being allocated, how much is going to the team, to the developers, if there's any like pre-sale, things like that. You always want to make sure, because is it really a governance token if 50% is owned by one party? Then the team too, always kind of look into their background and any credentials they have. A lot of times people would look down upon anonymous teams, and I think, they still do, and it's still right to do in some cases. But recently there has been like an increase of people that are, I guess, advocating for anonymous teams. It's more like the crypto feel, I guess, a bunch of anons working on something, I guess. But regardless, just check out the team, always look into their background, see if they look reputable, or if, there's any red flags or sketchy things. I mean, those are some of the things that I use. Let me just see if there's anything else. No, but then I do have noted, like, there are additional risks too that you really just can't always measure it. Like, you just gotta, it depends mostly on the project. Like, as an example, this yam thing, I had some yams farmed, and then they had a migration from the first yam to like the new currency yam, and I had like 2 days to move my yams over, and I was like, okay, I'll have enough time. Well, I just forgot. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a whole lot. But now my yams, they're useless. They're stuck on the first one. There's no way I can ever get them back. So it's like, that's a risk too. Like, you have to be active in the community at that time, which most people were. Like, I'm not trying to blame Yam at all for this. Like, it had to be done. But this is something that, like, your regular average Joe, he's not going to be sitting on a Yam Discord or Telegram all day to prepare for that. So it's just like little risks like that you always, got to be prepared for, watch out for, that you might not ever know how to even measure until they happen. So I messed up the title here, but what does DeFi and its risk look like in the future? So in the future, I expect to see more insurance options, like Nexus Mutual. They allow you to like insure, say you have a vault open on MakerDAO, or Aave, things like that. You can actually open up an insurance position on it, just in case, say, there was a smart contract exploit. So you're kind of like mitigating some of that risk, kind of removing it, which is always good if you're a little worried, since all of this is very experimental. I also plan on seeing more auditing options in like companies. It would be nice to see. Right now, auditing firms are like weeks and weeks backed up. They've got so much to do. The pricing is so high just because, there's so much demand for audits, but there's not enough people doing audits. So definitely it would be nice to see more, auditing firms, less vegetables, more innovative long-term projects. Some of these things are really cool. The whole Wi-Fi thing, Yam even, like I do like all these experiments personally. I think they're great, but you know, it's not sustainable to release a new vegetable every week. I do think in the future we're going to start seeing obviously more innovative long-term projects that could even learn from some of these experiments. You know, maybe take some of the cool, important stuff. I'm going to wrap up here real quick. I think I'm definitely running out of time. Do want to see more testnets being used? That would be nice. People should be using them more. And then more docs and education. Again, huge. Education is absolutely huge. I wish more people were doing it. People that aren't in crypto, they're kind of like it's a hobby. But if they want to learn, you know, they want something to do to help out in crypto, education, seriously, look into it. Whether you write something, a blog post, make a quick YouTube video, anything, it's very helpful. Education is very important. So thank you, everyone. I'm DeFi Dude. You can follow me on Twitter. Follow us on Aave. Our governance progress, lots to come there. So thank you, anyone.